I'm Jonathan Searcy. I'm an associate professor of English here at SWU. I'm also the Department of Humanities coordinator. This semester, our theme in chapel has been legacy. And incidentally, as a plug for the humanities, the video that precedes every one of our speakers in that series, made by a humanities grad, Seth Williams, who's going to be speaking for us later. The word legacy is one that in particular is connected to the humanities. So if you look at the etymology of that word, that's a very humanities-esque thing to do, by the way, look at a word's etymology, where its meaning comes from. You find out, okay, a legacy is an inheritance, right, that gets passed from someone to someone else. But originally, a legacy was not just the thing that got passed. It was a person. It was a go-between. So somebody would get the wealth of someone who was living or dead and then convey that, move that to somebody else. And the School of Religion and Humanities is unique on this campus in that we are those go-betweens between the best of what's been thought and said in the past and the future. This morning in my Bible reading, I was in Psalm 107, and the first verse of that one is a pretty famous one. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for his faithful love endures forever. And the gist of that promise is like, hey, keep going, have faith, God's going to be there for you in the future. But the rest of the chapter, which is over 40 verses long, does not keep talking about the future. Instead, it recounts, paragraph by paragraph, what God has done in the past. So that at the end, the very last verse of this chapter, Psalm 107, is, those who are wise will take all this to heart, what God has done in the past. They will see in our history the faithful love of the Lord. Those of you who are here, I know you're here because Dr. Myers asked you to be from his World Civ class. Is that correct? It's wise to look at history, whether you're meeting a requirement for your graduation or not. And then it is wise to not only take what you've learned from history, but then communicate how God's faithful love has endured in your life. Our humanities programs in history and public policy, in media communications, in writing and digital studies are teaching people how to read and learn about the past in the hopes of conveying it in a compelling way to people now and in the future. And whether it's through cutting-edge media or just plain words on paper, the lessons the humanities teach are ones worth remembering and then living out. Today, our showcase is built on the legacy of SWU's humanities. We are going to start with a bunch of superstar grads, people who've already gotten their degree from SWU in the humanities. We're then going to have an hour where we recognize current students who are building their legacy now, the winners of the photo story competition, Liv Keaton, Taylor Lee, some history students, some really outstanding media comm students, and then we're going to finish with our keynote from our retiring professor, Dr. Schleifer, who's been here for nearly 30 years and has learned a lot of lessons that he wants to convey to us. I've got several people to thank for making today happen. I'm going to save them to the end only to say that it wouldn't have happened without Dr. Lewis Knight. So let's give him a hand here. He's been invaluable, and I will stop yapping now and get to the main event, which is a set of alums who graduated with degrees, so they succeeded here, but more importantly, they are succeeding in the world. Our first SWU alum is Chandrea Young. She is currently the Strategic Communications Coordinator at Clemson University in their Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management program. She graduated in 2019 with a major in media comm and a minor in digital publishing. I got to teach her my first semester here. Man, she was on our basketball team, man. We got John Davis over there for a humanities event. You know you got to be good. If I wrote him and said, Sean Dre is coming to campus, he was like, I will be there. Thank you so much. Come up and share with us what you're doing and what you've learned while you were here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And yes, I am the Strategic Communications Coordinator at Parks, Rec, and Tourism at Clemson. And I could not have been there without the help of SWU and Lewis. I've learned so much here, got to experience so many things. I had my first internship here, landed a role with CNN, like an interview there, so everything was great. And I did also go to school for film and TV. I wanted to kind of expand my storytelling a little bit, but I got the foundations here at SWU, learned how to shoot, edit, all of those things, so that was all great. While I was here, I was really interested in reporting at the time, which also goes hand in hand with what I do now. I'm a documentary storyteller on the side, so I learned that here from taking our documentary courses with Lewis. So that was really great. But yeah, I think SWU just taught me project management, how to be versatile. Yeah, and so my love for storytelling just started here, so I'm really happy. I have no regrets, and I'm just happy to be here, so thank you.
Our second alum couldn't be here with us. He is a technical arts director at Alive. His name is Matt Hirschap. Lewis, being the media whiz that he is, told Matt, if you can't be here, why don't you film yourself? You're a contract video editor and motion graphics artist on the side. So that's what Matt did. Matt graduated from SWU with a media communications degree in 2016.
Hey everyone, my name is Matt Hirschap, and I'm so honored to be able to tell you a little bit of who I am, what I get to do for a living, and how SWU truly impacted my life. I'm a proud husband and father of 3 beautiful children, and when I'm not spending time with them, I'm filling my time with some sort of work. So I truly love what I do, and I'm passionate about the skill set that God has given me. I'm currently the technical arts director at Alive Wesleyan Church here in Central South Carolina. And in this role, I get the opportunity to lead an amazing team of volunteers in the live production of our weekly services. It's my joy and honor to get to train our volunteers and get people involved in serving and worship through technology. We're currently running about 6 cameras in total with live switching, directing, in-room and online sound, and lighting. It's a ton of fun, and I'm always getting to let my creativity run free and try new things. In addition to the live service production, I'm also over our video production as well. I get the opportunity to create various forms of video content and help bring creative ideas to life through video. Some of these are motion graphics, bumper videos, testimony, life story videos, and even some narrative content. My background is in video production, and that's what got me started in the creative industry. After my time at SWU, I spent the next 5 years in various video production positions for a few different companies, and I continue to get some incredible opportunities specifically as a contracted video editor. From national commercial spots to international brand promotional material, I've been able to learn and grow while doing what I love. My time at Southern Wesleyan in the Media Comm program taught me a great deal about the industry and how to grow and sharpen my skill set. Dr. Knight would always talk about not being married to your work, and that really helped me push my creative limits at the time because he could see the potential in me. That mindset allowed me to grow and thrive in an industry that you have to be equally passionate about what you're doing and hold it with an open hand for constructive feedback and for the best thing possible. SWU also taught me how I can be a person of faith in a secular society and in secular media. What I've learned about working in the industry and in business is that it can be cutthroat at times, and a lot of marketing can be focused just on making more money. While it's not inherently bad, people can hyper-focus on this and lose the personal touch. So when you go out into the workforce, a servant's heart and genuine care and concern for others can really make you stand out. I didn't always realize, especially in college, that these intangibles would often get me more work and build better relationships with people than even my skill set. Lean into that aspect and learn from your community and from the amazing people around you. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to share with you. I wish I could be there with you today. And if you'd like to learn more about what I do, I'd love to hear from you. I've given Lewis my permission to share my contact information with you if you'd like that. Thanks again.
Our next alum is Caleb Southern, who's currently here at SWU as our Director of Retention. He graduated from SWU in December 2017 with a degree in history and a minor in English. Caleb Southern.
Thank you. So I had a degree, I have two degrees actually, in history, and historians are often always telling stories. So I want to tell a little bit of my story and how SWU plays into that and what I've learned from that. On May 17, 1861, Confederate war clerk John Beauchamp Jones wrote, "Statesmen are the physicians of the public weal." My master's thesis focused on the Confederate civilian government, and I argued that President Davis and his cabinet members failed to understand their role as these physicians. And in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why the Confederacy failed was as losses piled up, the public weal had nothing to grasp onto that would motivate a continued resistance. Over Lent, I read a different type of book by a Puritan minister named Jeremiah Burroughs called The Rare Jewel of Christian Contentment. And the Puritans often spoke about pastors specifically, but the Puritans were very humanistic pastors. They had very deep learning in Greek and biblical theology and study, and they always had practical application for that deep learning. He always talked about pastors as being physicians. Our Enlightenment world tends to falsely dichotomize two poles of everyone's existence, the ideal and the real. And I believe that the calling of the humanist is to the role of physician. As physicians of the modern world, we seek to bind together these two realities of human existence, and in my own work, life, and callings, this has played out. I fell in love with history in 2004. I had the privilege or distinct dishonor to be the son of a licensed funeral director and embalmer, so we did a lot of things with death. And so in 2004, when President Reagan died, we went to Washington, D.C. to view his body lying in state in the Capitol Rotunda. On our last day there, we went to Ford's Theater, which is the theater where President Lincoln was assassinated by a Southern sympathizer named John Joseph Booth in April of 1865, and I was fascinated by this event, and I devoured every book I could lay my hands on the Lincoln assassination, which then spread to Lincoln, which then spread to the Civil War, which then spread to American history in general. And so I came to college with one purpose. I had one purpose when I came to college. That was to study history. And instead, I ended up finding a calling. My second year here, my parents divorced while I was in college, my sophomore year of college. And as I approached the end of my time at SWU, I was considering marriage myself. And it was there was a lot of tension and conflict there because my parents had just gone through a pretty nasty divorce, and I was looking to enter the same thing that they had just rent apart. I believe that Yahweh has called me to my family. It's the highest calling of my life, and to support my family, I opted for more financially secure jobs over a long, what I considered at the time, a long, more tedious, specialized graduate school career. So I started in admissions here at Southern Wesleyan, and now I'm Director of Retention, and I also teach, I have since gotten my master's, and I teach adjunct at Tri-County and some for Southern Wesleyan. And for me, this has been, it's been the very life of a humanist calling. I still study deeply topics like history, biblical studies, apologetics, higher education, theology, or at least I try to when I have time. And for some, this is too intellectual. For some people in my life, they don't understand it's too intellectual, and that is a great risk. It could become mere intellectualism, knowing a lot about these things, God, the Bible, the Christian life, our nation's past, but having no evidence of bearing fruit in every good work, according to Paul's prayer in Colossians 1. But that tension between theory and practice is exactly where I have found most fulfillment, and I dare say most humanist find most fulfillment as well. My study might seem useless until crisis strikes, and people begin to ask deeper questions about Yahweh's goodness or about whether we've experienced anything like our current political turmoil as a nation before. In admissions, I constantly combated industry pressure to focus only on the numbers, and I advocated for higher quality over mere quantification, something humanists are distinctly called to do, distinctly trained to do. In retention, I work a lot with institutional data, large Excel spreadsheets full of data. But as a humanist, I bring a different set of questions to these numbers. I look at these numbers and ask, what story are they telling? Or what context do these numbers fit into? Or what can these numbers not tell us about the institution or about what's happening here? As a father, I look around at culture's current climate of expressive individualism, which exalts the goodness of Yahweh's creative design. And I read and think voraciously about how I will teach and raise up my own daughter about the goodness of her body as a gift from a loving Creator who makes no mistakes and works all things for good. As a churchman, I caution and call my congregation to remember the promise of Yahweh in Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love God, or the promise in Matthew 16:18, where Jesus says the gates of hell shall not prevail against his church, his very body. And so we need not fear cultural assaults or rising secularism. In fact, these are already being worked for our good, the church's good, by our loving Redeemer. In Lincoln's second inaugural address, almost a month before his life would be taken by a bullet entering his brain, he spoke to a battered and bleeding nation. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow, and for his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. And so to my fellow humanists in the room, strive to be a physician where you work, live, and play. Bind up wounds, care for those in the depths of harsh realities, call to action those deep in thought, and one small step after another tie together what our world violently rends apart, reality and idealism. Thank you.
Our next alum is another history graduate. Michaela Bailey is currently a PhD candidate in history at the Catholic University of America. She's studying late medieval English history. She's going to be an adjunct instructor in the fall while she continues to work on her dissertation. Just as a sign that Michaela's a superstar, she was the recipient of the Cicely Angleton Graduate Fellowship in Medieval History. It's given to a student once every 3 years, and she was a recipient of that. She graduated summa cum laude from SWU with a BA in history in 2017, and after getting her MA in history from Clemson in 2019, she went to the Catholic University of America. We're very thankful to welcome Michaela.
That's great. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. That's really good. So, good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and talk, to share a little bit about myself. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's a real honor to be invited back and to be welcomed with open arms back to a place that you consider home. So, I'd like to start out by telling you a little bit about me, what I do, where I am now, and then I'll move on to share a little bit about how SWU played a role in me getting there. And what I really learned being here at this institution. Thank you so much, Lewis. We had the same first day of class, so we really bonded while we stood in line at the cafeteria that day. We've been friends ever since. And we've been... I did keep it in the class. Anyway, so I'm currently at the dissertation proposal stage of my PhD program at the Catholic University of America. I study late medieval England, law, economy, society, especially focused on women and gender, and especially the household in particular. So my fields are medieval England, biblical public history, and women's history. So what does that all actually mean? Well, I study women and their relationships to society. I study the economy in the household, how the household is an economic unit of both consumption and production. Consumption is what you think, they buy stuff, they use stuff. Production, because people in the Middle Ages often produce goods and services out of their homes, and so this is very interesting and key part of rural societies and rural economies. I also look at how wage labor is important. There's one scholar, Barbara Hannawalt, who argues that we should call it a family economy instead of a household economy because people are bringing part-time gig work wages from that into their family and their family income benefits from this and seasonal labor, that sort of thing. So my current project that I'm working towards relates to all of this. My dissertation proposal that I'm putting together now is specifically about the relationship between the town and the county in Norfolk in the 15th century England. It's all about the wool trade and the ways in which the wool trade shapes the landscape, both figuratively and literally. Norfolk is on the eastern coast of England, sort of on the south. Not too far from London, but just far enough. And it's not good for growing the kind of crops that you need for a big agricultural economy. It's really good for rabbit which is so the trade relationships are really interesting here because this is a big port. Norwich is the port town. It's the only urban center in the county. But it's not a city like London. It's a fraction of the size of medieval London, which is already a very small city by modern standards, but very large. And super huge, mega metropolis by medieval English standards. So, since Norwich is the biggest market and urban center, they have a guild controlling all of the weaving, which is a big factor in the wool trade. They weave housewares, and almost everyone specializes here. Everybody who's part of this trade specializes because they use a very specific kind of wool from the specific breed of sheep that they farm. The sheep is multiplied, really riveted by breeds of sheep. And they're really good. They're very rowdy. They're really good for living in a place where fences are inconvenient to build and maintain because they won't stay anymore. But people specialize in making a special kind of fabric called worsted. So it's a specific method of weaving, a specific kind of loom weaving. So I'm so riveted by all of my talk about this wool and loom. But the important part here is the trade relationship and these networks that are established by this. And this is what the dissertation is. It's very boring, very, very incredibly specific research that you spend your whole life on. And spend the rest of your life boring everyone to tears talking about it and listening. Guilds are really important. Part of this, guilds control, they're groups of artisans, they control quality of production, they control sort of the education, the building of trades, maintenance of sort of business practices. They're not like unions. I don't think of them like unions in Middle Ages, especially not in England. There are lots of kinds of guilds and lots of things I could tell you about them that I will spare you today. But the important part is that they become sort of political bodies and they have a lot of kind of governing power because of their economic power, but also because of policy. If your main export is this worsted woven product that you make out of sheep wool, they don't make them out of sheep, they make them out of wool. Sheep is separate. So if you're making this one product and this one group of people controls that product, how much you can make, how big your loom is, how many apprentices you can take to train how to weave this wool, if they're controlling how much wool you can buy in a year to make your product as well as export it. They kind of have a lot of power, especially if that's the main trade in your community. They really have a lot of political power over you and how you live in your society. So all of that to say, the household is very important. People who leave from within their homes as sort of side gigs full time. All of these really interesting economic relationships, social relationships. There are wool churches, which are also really important and interesting. Just imagine if your sort of local hometown church in your small town, in a town like Central, which probably has like 100 members or something like that. Imagine if you just had a gigantic cathedral that your 200, maybe 200 people attend every week. Those are the wool churches. They're built from all the opulent wealth that comes out of this trade for a really small group of people to enjoy. And they're not just inquiry, I think, in this area, in this time period, that I'll quit boring you with because I just see your eyes really clear. But it's very interesting stuff from the experts. This is me. Thank you. So how do I get into medieval history? Medieval history is really, really small niche, and as you can tell, I'm in an incredibly small niche. Well, especially in South Carolina, we're in Civil War history, in the South. I'm a little unusual, I think. Well, I found medieval history through Southern West Virginia. Caleb had this really wonderful talk, really enjoyed a singular goal. I remember like the campus, I was just really ahead of him. And I remember the singular goals in history, to be a professor, to be a scholar. I was nothing like that. I showed up to Southern West Virginia with no plans. I was intending to be an undeclared music. I did not know what I wanted to do. I wasn't even planning to go to college. A whole other story for another time. But I showed up to orientation back then. We waited in line for 3 hours and I handed you a piece of paper and then we walked 5 feet and then that piece of paper. Someone student would be another piece of paper. And then you were done. And you were a student and that's how it used to work. So when I got my second piece of paper, I stood there and looked at it up there to come to top major, history. And I said, what? I didn't pick that. And I didn't pick that. And I just never changed it. I just stayed. Dr. Myers signed me up for a bunch of history classes. I was taking them. I don't know really what to call it other than God's plan for my life and his very direct intervention. Maybe I just wasn't listening to God and he thought I really need to go and intervene there. I'm not sure. But I really believe that. I really believe that God decided he brought me to Southern West Virginia. He brought me to the history department. He brought me to the division of humanities for a really specific and wonderful time in my life. And I'm going to spare you the really long version of the rest of my testimony now that I've bored you with a very short version of the dissertation project. I'd be happy to tell you about another time, but I had a real Matthew 14 kind of moment, a real get out of the boat moment, Matthew 14. Jesus walking on the water. Peter looks out and says, and Jesus says, get out of the boat. Come on, keep your eyes on me. And so I'm telling you all of this because that moment that I had, it was during spiritual emphasis here at Wesleyan in my first semester. It changed my life. If I didn't have this moment with God in this really radical experience, I would not be in front of you right now. I don't know where I would be. I wouldn't be here doing this, talking to you, pursuing history the whole time, living in Washington, D.C. But this is, what God has done for me in my life, and I'm really thankful to be here, and I'm really thankful to share this with you. This school gave me a lot of opportunities, and I got into medieval studies here. And never would have imagined, never as a child would have ever thought that I would be here doing something like this. But it was on the first day of our youth constitution class, we read the Magna Carta together that day, and I was in Britain 1688 with Dr. Myers, and we were talking about Anglo-Saxon society in Northern Conquest. And I just had this moment where I kind of put these things together and said, if you don't know, the Magna Carta was signed in 1216 under British stuff. I had these sort of different classes working together in this really critical moment to inform me and help me to come to this idea that there's something more here about the type of society, the nature of the people who would produce this document as part of it. And I just thought, this is what I was made to do. This is where I'm made to be. And so, 2 weeks later, after I had this moment, I turned down the honors program. I was planning to do the honors program, and I had to regret that I turned that down. And so I was here in Bluehook, and Professor Emily Germain, who was then the director of the honors program, came up to me and we had a little conversation. She mentioned, I was disappointed that and I'll enroll you tomorrow in the honors program. This was after midterm. I had dropped, had long passed. So there I was, 2 days later, only in a place like Southern Wesleyan could this happen because I had my really strangely shaped, tiny rectangular tricolor form, and I had to walk through the basement wing of Stuart Bennett and registrar space. I almost did that. Felt like I was moving to Windsor. But it didn't take Greek and those stuff. But so I had my little tricolor form. Dr. Cinnamon, then Dean of Arts and Sciences, had to sign it. I'd never been in class with him, but he knew me, and he had faith that it was a decision he made for the recommendation of the faculty. So that's just a really unique and unusual moment in your life. And so that led to me part of the process of the honors program was to apply for a grant, and I didn't think I was going to get a grant, and I was really resentful of wasting my time applying for this grant. I got the grant. I didn't have a lot of, the thing here is that I didn't really have a lot of belief in myself, and I didn't really know what I was capable of, and I didn't really have any plan. And God gives me this plan by making things happen to me that I don't necessarily want to happen. But I'm grateful for it later. So I got to go to England on grant money paid for by the South Carolina University. Really wonderful opportunity, which kind of catapulted me into going to Clemson for more graduate work, continuing my work in history. While I was at Clemson, I got into digital humanities. Just a handful of history. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm doing a lot of digital humanities now. And so I was hired to work on this grant-funded project funded by the DC Humanities for medieval guidebook to the digital guidebook to medieval DC. I say that like this every time. I think that's like a year of working on it. It's a really wonderful opportunity. It's really unique at the moment in time to be working on something like this because we're taking physical places around the city to use as a hands-on classroom resource for public school educators. So we go to Lark Statue, we have the Smithsonian Castle on the National Mall, we have the National Cathedral and other things like that, which I had to scout. So I spent a lot of time walking the city, trekking these different neighborhoods, going off the beaten path, climbing over overgrown barriers and parks. Don't climb fountains, it's really bad. But I spent a lot of time doing those things and also building resources for the website. Any day now, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And so it's been a really great experience, a really formative experience, and it gave me the opportunity to work with some people at the top of my field and also to present at the top of my field with those people. The co-chairs for the Medieval Academy and the National Conference are the ones who spearheaded this project as part of that conference. It's one of the annual meetings for all medievalists in America to kind of converge and do all their business there and other things. So I got to stand up in Washington alongside the co-chairs of the conference, which was a really high honor, and it's a really rare opportunity for me to share these kinds of honors with a group of people who are kind of asking me to brag about things that they're doing because they're not good. But they want the credit for it. So it's really a treat to get to come and talk about that. And so I want to say thank you to all of the faculty who believed in me and who supported me throughout all of my studies through the honors program. And beyond my time here at Southern Wesleyan, Dr. Myers especially has really been a huge source of encouragement and a wonderful mentor throughout my life. And through my time at Clemson, through my application process at the University of America, and without the opportunities that I had here at Southern Wesleyan, I definitely wouldn't be at the University of America or the PhD. Not only because I was introduced to all of the foreign history that I had drilled on about here at Southern Wesleyan, but also because I don't think I would be studying history if I had gone anywhere else. Thank you.
Our next presenter can't be here. He's in Canada. Quentin Bent, when I met him, He loved two things, Drake and baseball. He still loves Drake. He loves being a UX writer for Yelp more than baseball now. Maybe he loves baseball still, but he's way more successful at the whole user design writing for Yelp thing. He graduated in 2019 with a degree in English. Here's his video.
What's up, everyone? My name's Quentin. I graduated SWU in 2019 with a degree in English, and I am now the user experience writer at a major global tech company. As a user experience writer, my job is to create and develop all the content that you see while you're using an app. I truly believe that my humanities studies from SWU really helped pave the way for my education. In my opinion, a degree in English is one of the most valuable degrees that you can receive. The program really focused on two main skills in life, I think. One being critical thinking and the other being storytelling. As human beings, the ability to empathize and experience other cultures is very important. And I think the best way to learn how to do this is through reading the stories of others. I really credit the humanities department. They really taught me the creative writing process from ideation all the way up until completion and the final project. They taught me how to analyze an issue effectively, how to identify key concerns, and ultimately how to problem solve. And I think these skills translate to any industry, wherever you want to go. In my day-to-day job as a user experience writer, I'm in charge of creating the content strategy, the voice, and the tone of an app. And so the ability to think creatively and tell stories clearly and concisely is very important to me, and I think SWU really paved a strong foundation for this. I think one of the best pieces of advice I can give, and it's not humanities specific, it's not English specific, it's more general advice, but I think it's very important, and it's to take the time to figure out what you really love and enjoy doing, right? And pursue whatever it is with such relentlessness and such dedication that it would be unreasonable for you to fail. I was never the best writer, but what I think really separated me was my work ethic. I, with humility, accepted the fact that I wasn't the best writer and that I knew I would have to work a lot harder than most people, right? So I took the time and the effort to consistently perfect my craft every day and made sure that I became an industry expert, right? And I think looking back on it, there's no way I would not achieve my goal based on how much work I previously put in. Like, it was just completely unrealistic for me not to achieve it, right? And I think if you pursue any endeavor, any goal with that amount of work, then you're probably going to achieve your goal, right? So I guess my one piece of advice would be to find what you love to do and pursue it with relentless dedication and humility.
Our next speaker is Dynasty Fields, who recently successfully defended her master's thesis at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. She's an adjunct instructor of English here at SWU. She graduated in 2019 with a degree in English and a minor in media communication. Dynasty.
Hello, everyone. Noted I'm an English major because I drafted this entire speech. So, yes, as Dr. Cersei said, I'm an adjunct instructor of English here, and I just completed that master's degree. I'm so happy. So, good morning, and as an alumni of this university, I'm honored to speak with you today. Specifically, I want to highlight the ways that the English department provided me with professional opportunities as an undergraduate student. It's pretty awesome. Recently, I attended the University of Tennessee, Knoxville for my master's degree in rhetoric, writing, and linguistics. There, I got to explore my research interests in human-animal relationships and the communication trends that emerged from them. For my MA thesis, I analyzed the similarities and differences in how a Tennessee zoo communicates about humans and different non-human animal species, specifically German cockroaches, western lowland gorillas, and red wolves. Quite a mix. It was fun. I also served as an editorial assistant and social media manager of the Journal of Victorian Culture. These roles brought me into contact with Victorian perspectives on non-human animals and how these understandings influence how we think about animals today. My experiences at SWU were fundamental in helping me gain acceptance to this graduate program and in helping me to expand my knowledge of human-animal studies and to contribute to the field myself. There were primarily 3 opportunities that I received as an English major that prepared me for work at UPK and life beyond. So the first of these is that I got to publish interviews and blog posts at the Carolina Institute for Faith and Culture. It really helped me to build my CV. So this is a website run by the School Humanities Division, so different faculty from across the humanities. As part of my English courses, particularly advanced composition and professional writing, I'm sure some of you here today have had those courses, I interviewed SWU faculty on their professional specializations and their personal passions. I also reviewed and published books, community event, and film reviews. Having these publications listed on my CV helped me to get an internship with South Carolina ETV, so South Carolina Educational Television, in their education division, where I also got to write blog posts. With this wealth of blog post writing, when it came time for me to apply for assistantships at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, I got the one with the Journal of Victorian Culture, where I got to run their social media account, so it was great. The second thing that I did was I had a chapter accepted into a Paul Grave Macmillan collection on vegetarianism that I later co-authored with one of my professors. Close-knit relationships with faculty are a feature of the English department that I remember quite fondly, and these are also prevalent throughout all of the other humanities divisions. Anybody in the crowd could probably tell you that. Building relationships with faculty mean that they often recognize your interests, and so when an opportunity passes by that is in line with those interests, they'll alert you to it. So in my case, this is exactly what happened, and one of my professors knew that I had an interest in communication surrounding animals and alerted me to the call for papers addressing the topic. Once my abstract was approved, he co-wrote the paper with me. So at UPK, years later, my academic advisor told me that it was very impressive that I had already published a chapter in like a major venue. So third and finally, I wrote a conference paper that I presented at the Southeast Conference on Christianity and Literature. So I, along with other students in the major, was sent the call for papers by Dr. Cersei at the 2019 conference. Yeah, so we got to present there. It was great. Presenting at the conference provided me with my first conference experience in connection to English, and I was able to use the paper that I presented on as my writing sample for graduate school. And I got accepted. So it was a pretty good paper. So in conclusion, I'm grateful for the opportunities that I was given through the English department, opportunities which have helped me to participate in my specialization, and even now as I teach writing courses. I encourage current students to seek out opportunities that come their way, build relationships with humanities faculty, and yeah, just enjoy your program because that's 4 years of your life.
Our final alum is a SWU employee. He's the videographer for SWU's marketing department. Seth Williams graduated in December 2019 with a degree in media communications. Seth.
What's up, guys? I'm not super accustomed to talking in front of a bunch of people like this, so I'm severely regretting not doing what Matt did and just make a video instead. But hopefully people will approve. If I get off track, just send me back. Right now, I am a filmmaker, I'm a photographer, I'm a writer, I'm an avid film enthusiast, I love reading and music, so thank you for the great question. But I only do one of those things for my job, and that's okay. I think it's awesome to pursue side passions just as intensely as you pursue your main career. So right now I work at SWU as the lead videographer, so if you see like any videos, like there was a video about Mai Cherie that came out recently about her track experience, and she won like a pretty big award competing at nationals this year. So that was a project that I worked on. So I am super used to being behind the camera instead of in front of it, so this is unique. But one of the things that I really appreciate about SWU was I met my wife at SWU, so that's pretty good for her. But another one was being in Lewis's classes. Lewis really allowed us to meld our educational experience here. When I came in, I wasn't super interested in the kind of typical MediaComm student path. I was more interested in filmmaking and film criticism. And those were classes that, as students, we were kind of able to come up with on the fly. So, like halfway through my career here at SWU, we started a short film class and had a lot of fun with that. We basically just took a whole semester and made a short film with other group of students who were very passionate about doing the same thing. And that was a ton of fun. And I think that's one of the things that really sparked my creativity, just being given that freedom to kind of make decisions like that and lead a group of students to make short film projects. John Drea was starred in one of them, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, that's cool. It's probably super cringy to look back on it now and be like, oh, I don't want to watch that anymore. But yeah, it was a blast being able to work on those projects as a student. And I made a ton of lifelong friends that I still interact with, talk to, and we still plan on making more projects just like that in the future. One of my good friends, Josh Johnson, who works on a couple of things together, is a writer. He wrote a short story recently that I plan on adapting into a short film. So there's a very prolific fantasy writer named Brandon Sanderson. I don't know if any of you have heard of him here. Cool. But he started writing while he worked the night shift at a hotel. He would just crank away on some pages throughout the night while he worked at this hotel at the front desk. And now he's one of the highest grossing fantasy authors in the world. He sells hundreds of thousands of copies of books every year. And I think it's cool that he was able to not, like his career wasn't focused on his writing, but he was still able to pursue those passions on the side. And now, he's a very prolific writer in his field. So yeah, I would just say, as a little bit of encouragement, to continue working on the things that you enjoy, even if it's not your main source of income. And maybe one day it'll turn out that you become a super famous author like Anderson. But thank you.
The way I know Brandon Sanderson is that one of our recent English graduates, when he graduated, gave me a Elantris as like, typically I did give him a book. This is what English professors do. They give books as gifts. And he's like, I bet you haven't read this person. That, in summation, is the kind of relationship that professors and students have here. Like, I knew a lot more about Drake when I was done with my semester with Quentin than I did before the semester began. And I know who Brandon Sanderson is because David gave me his book. That brings to a conclusion the first part of our showcase, where we highlight our superstar alums. Let's give them all a hand. We're going to take about a 20-minute break at 10:15. I'm going to come back up and I'm going to announce the winners of the photo story competition. And then I'm going to welcome up Liv Keaton, Taylor Lee, current students, show you some videos from students in history and media communication. Okay? So we'll be back at 10:15. Thank you.
We are committed to helping you figure out how to read, write, and present your message in a way that's memorable and compelling. If you choose to major in one of our humanities programs, you can focus in history and public policy, media communication, or writing and digital studies. In addition, we have minors for each of those major programs that would be perfect complements to anything from a business degree to a chemistry degree.
We had an older student who was actually a major, another discipline, but she took a history course and made the statement, "I found my people." And so all of her elective credits, she took as many history as she could possibly do because she felt at home there. And I'd like to think that all of our students, maybe not that first semester and maybe not when they're writing a long research paper, but they come to feel at home.
And with 40 students, I can focus on students' individual needs. And somebody comes in that likes doing graphics and wants to work in Illustrator and InDesign, and that we can allow that to happen. We can focus on that, while the student that wants to be an anchor person in a newscast, well, we can focus on that for that student.
When students graduate from Southern Wesleyan with a humanities degree, they are able to walk right into news organizations, to serve churches, to write curriculum or marketing, to be good teachers. Students who have humanities degrees don't all look the same. They're able to take their reading and writing and presenting skills and adapt them to an ever-changing work world.
I love what I do, and I like investing in students, but I really love watching the students invest in each other, and how, I always say media is a team sport, and I watch how they work together collaboratively to make really good projects. Students here leave with good portfolios, and so they can get good jobs. And we were ranked highly for a small program that we are. I give that to the students. I say it's on them. So I ended up here at Southern Wesleyan because I feel like it's my mission, it's my ministry. It's not my job, never was my job, it's my passion. And it's come to fruition because of the young people that give me the energy to stay passionately involved with media.
One thing in particular I love about teaching writing is showing students that their words matter. At the end of a semester of freshman English, for instance, I ask students to write a thank you letter to a faculty or staff member on campus. And what students discover is that it feels really good to be concrete in their writing, in sharing with someone how that person has affected their lives in just 3 months, but they also see that their words have the ability to make someone's day. And if you decide to major in a humanities program, you get to experience what it would feel like not only to make someone's day better, but to make someone's life better.
It's 10:15. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the second part of our SWU Humanities Showcase. Dr. Angelica Christie couldn't be here. She did a very cool project, very in keeping with today's showcase. She created a photo story competition that asked students outside the classroom, take a picture, put text with it, tell a story about legacy. Several great submissions, and there were 3 categories that people could win awards in. Students got to vote on which submission they thought was best, so we've got a winner there. Faculty and staff got to vote on which one they thought was best, so we've got a winner there. And then we had a jury selection with 3 prizes to give out. Each of these feature money. So here we go. We're going to start with the Student Selection Award winner. This was the entry selected as most popular by students. Here's what the student wrote. When people look at me, I want them to think of someone who is selfless, someone who never gave up, someone who gave every ounce of himself to whatever he put his mind to. When I look at myself, I want to be proud of myself and be able to say I did everything in my power to live a legacy worth following. Let's give a congratulations to the Student Award winner, Samuel Limehouse. Our Faculty Staff Selection Award winner wrote this. This picture represents the legacy of Christians before us, the ones who set a tone for our lives. Freedom's Hill is the building in the background pictured in black and white to represent the past. It was a haven, a place to praise God, a place to feel free. In the frame in color is the Alive Chapel, where Southern Wesleyan University students freely praise the Lord by choice. We are blessed to live in a country where our faith can be our legacy. We can freely and safely praise the Lord, thanks to the people before us. Let's congratulate the Faculty Staff Selection winner, Taylor Ebbett. And now our 3 juried selection award winners. In third place, a prize of $75. The title, Be Kind One to Another, BEE. As a bee goes around collecting pollen and nectar to feed its young and make a delicious treat, it inadvertently spreads pollen to other flowers, causing the plant to produce much fruit. This is a bee's legacy. As I go on, my prayer is that I would daily spread the good news of Jesus, even as I go about the mundane tasks of life. The result, helping the vine of Christ produce much fruit, will be my legacy. Julia Reed. Second place, Alaska's Footprint on 35mm film. What footprint will you leave on this earth? I can plan to have a laundry list of accomplishments, but what if I am not among the lucky few selected to be wealthy, esteemed, or legendary? If not, I want to leave a footprint resembling this first film photo of mine, simple and singular. I want to leave a footprint of being an excellent father, like the dad in the background showing his son the world's beauty. And I would like to leave a footprint parallel to the film burn, not allowing my imperfections to ruin a meaningful legacy. Let's congratulate Zach Turner. And finally, our first place jury selection award winner. This one went for $200. Zach, I don't know, but there's 125 smackers in that envelope. Here's our first place award winner. The title, Spread Your Wings. During my time at SWU, I've been blessed with remarkable opportunities to spread my wings. I've explored new places, forged meaningful relationships, and ventured outside my comfort zone. Just as the butterfly symbolizes beauty and transformation, I pray my legacy reflects my kind and compassionate heart to positively impact others. Butterflies hold a special place in my heart, not just because they are beautiful, but because they symbolize the profound hope I have in Jesus and his unwavering faithfulness to me. The butterfly perfectly embodies the legacy I aspire to leave behind. Let's congratulate Michaela Carr. We're now going to have a series of presentations by current humanities students to show us what our current students are doing to build their legacy. Our first presentation is going to be in person by Liv Keaton and Taylor Lee. They're both going to graduate in 2024. Liv is a major in history and is minoring in English. Taylor is a psychology major. Here's their presentation.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and I'm actually going to the first part of our presentation, so we're going to do a quick introduction. So, hi, again, I'm Liv Taylor. I'm still currently a humanities major. We were actually both English majors at one point, now that's my minor, and I'm a student major now. I've actually been every single one of the humanities majors. I really just treated the humanities as a little stamp for a board, but I'm stuck on history now, well, history and public policy. So our project today is actually not one that is specific to the humanities. It is one that is important to all divisions, and it's not even a very specific project. It's one that we believe is important to colleges and universities across the country. So we do want to give a little disclaimer before we begin. Our presentation does cover some pretty serious and heavy subjects, including sexual violence and suicide. So just want to take a moment if anyone's feeling comfortable being here talking about these subjects. Now is the time to get back from this. Go ahead. So research shows that 1 in 5 female students and 1 in 3 male students will experience some form of sexual violence during their time in college. And then the thing is, these statistics remain virtually the same at religious colleges and universities like schools. So it really doesn't seem to matter whether it's a secular university or a religious university. Unfortunately, these statistics are still fairly high both times. So this is a visual representation of those percentages as applied to SWO's current on-campus student body. And as you can see, highlighted are a number. Currently, we have roughly 320 females and 232 males on campus. And of those highlighted, there's roughly 58 females highlighted and 12 males. Obviously, statistics aren't a 100% exact science, but research shows that the likelihood is this is the number of students that will be affected by sexual violence during their time here at school. So the survivor of an on-campus sexual assault tends to know their perpetrators. It's actually really high, it's 90% of the time. Now, this is sometimes a classmate, a friend, even someone they're in a romantic relationship with, like a boyfriend or girlfriend. And an undetected college rapist tends to commit an average of 6 rapes while at college, so this is rarely a one-time incident. So obviously, this is, as you can see, this is already a big problem, but we don't actually know how big the problem is because these kind of crimes tend to go way underreported. And out of all sexual assault survivors, only 12% report it to the police, is researchers' best guess at this time. Now, survivors of sexual assault suffer from a lot of problems due to the assault. They suffer from things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, substance abuse, self-injurious behaviors, and even suicidal ideation. Now, there are many young adults who come to college and just don't know what sexual violence looks like, or versus like what healthy sexual practices are. So the question is, what can we do at the college level to educate students about these things? Now, our answer to this question is We Will Be Heard. This is a program that serves to lift up every voice. We believe that every voice deserves to be heard. And we know that sexual and interpersonal violence are both very real and that they are happening on college campuses. So we believe it's time to make a change and to elevate the voices of the survivors.
So we want to change the culture around these issues, and we want to start by doing that here at SWU. Although I will say at this time we are not officially affiliated with SWU or any other college or university. We are an independent organization, currently just the two of us. But Taylor can tell you some more about what We Will Be Heard looks like and our goals. Hi again. So, our project, We Will Be Heard, focuses on 3 to 4 main topics: awareness, education, safety, and support. So first off is awareness. Again, like we said, a lot of people don't know about this topic, or they might not even know, that this is an issue that we have. So one way that we can spread awareness is by putting up posters around campus. Just kind of as like a quick look. This is a poster that I have made talking about what consent is. We also have an Instagram page. Our handle is @WeWillBeHeardOfficial. And on our Instagram page, we've addressed these topics kind of a little bit more in depth. Some things we've talked about is the difference between coercion and consent, the importance of bystander intervention. We also have a TikTok page. It's the same username for that. And something that religious universities specifically can do is they can hold chapels about sexual and interpersonal violence. Oftentimes, chapel is a place where we can bring all students together from all groups, and so that's a really good place to educate and bring awareness about this issue. And so I would say probably the most important aspect of this project is education. It's been proven time and time again that the way we prevent sexual violence and interpersonal violence on college campuses is by educating students. Again, students come in, they don't know anything about it, so if we tell students, how to practice safe sex and how to practice healthy relationships, we can prevent that violence from happening in the future. So one thing that we hope to do is to partner with SWU and help them create a yearly sexual and interpersonal violence education program. It's something that would be completed at the beginning of every school year, so students know exactly what this is and how to do it. And some other topics that we would like to address are healthy versus unhealthy relationships, sexual harassment, either on campus or in the workplace, consent, safe sex, the warning signs of an abusive relationship and how to leave one. That's super important because oftentimes people don't realize they're in an abusive relationship, and bystander intervention. And our final point is safety and support. So in terms of safety is super important just in general, and so something we want to do is urge schools to continue bettering their security. We want increased training for all faculty and staff so that they know how to handle sexual and interpersonal violence if a student were to come forward and ask for help for that. We also want to ensure all security cameras work and that our security teams are prepared for something like this were to happen here on campus. For support, survivors can receive help and counseling through our counseling services. And something that we're doing specifically to help support survivors of sexual violence is we have created a website where if a student experiences sexual violence, they can go and find help and a safe space. So our website's right here, www.bhofficial.wixsite.com/WeWillBeHeard. It's kind of long, but we also have a QR code here. It's kind of in the way if you guys want to scan this. But I'm just going to kind of walk through our website that we made and some things that we're doing. So if you open the website, this is what we have. That's our mission statement that Liv said earlier. And so one of the first pages we have is an I need help page. Oftentimes when students experience trauma, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. It's very overwhelming. And so this is a page where you can go to if you personally have experienced violence, or say your friend comes forward and says, hey, I need help. This is kind of a guideline of what to do. We have crisis lines, crisis hotlines for people to talk to. And then we have a page that says, I think I've been sexually assaulted. And it kind of walks through what is sexual assault and where can I go to receive help. And through our program, we help students find their nearest hospitals, police stations, advocacy centers, and the contact information for their university's Title IX coordinators. Because oftentimes, again, after you experience trauma, you don't know where to turn. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible for people to find help. And we've created a safe space for survivors of sexual assault. Self-care and recovery is super important. So we have ideas for self-care. We have music playlists for you to listen to feel better. We have daily affirmations. And something that's also in the process is a Discord server where survivors can come together and support each other. And finally, we have survivor stories. So as our name, We Will Be Heard, implies, we want every single survivor to be heard. And so if a survivor wants to share their story, this is the platform for them to do so. They can fill out a form and submit their story, and we will share that so that every story can be heard. Currently, with our website, we have information and services for upstate South Carolina universities. We have Anderson University, Bob Jones University, Clemson University, Furman University, North Greenville, and SWU. But we hope to expand this across South Carolina and hopefully across the nation. And so we can't do anything to change the past, but together we can change the future and eliminate sexual violence across all college campuses nationwide. Thank you.
So Dr. Knight just mentioned that the presentation's QR code is available. If you want to come up afterwards and scan it, just let them know. All right. In history, we have several great rivalries. I mean, you know them, I know them. Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. The Yankees and Red Sox. Batman and the Joker. Almost at the level of those three is the heated rivalry between the Patriots and the Loyalists. Which side are you going to choose in the Revolutionary War? Are you going to go with the British or are you going to go with the Americans? Well, Dr. Myers asked his American Revolution class to pick a side and then make a political ad. Here's what they came up with.
Everyone who does not agree with me is a traitor and a scoundrel. Colonist. Throwing my tea over into the ocean.
Is this really who you want as your leader? Britain wanted little to do with us for years, and now all they want is our money.
Because of all the taxes Britain is imposing on us now, I can no longer afford to run my business. Thanks, King George.
The new Quartering Act says I have to house British soldiers in my own home.
You're out of milk.
Thanks, King George.
Recently, British officers opened fire on a group of unarmed colonists. I was one of the lucky ones. I survived. Not everyone did. Christmas was like a brother to me, but now he's gone.
Because of Britain's latest policies, we're taxed anytime we try to unload our cargo. Now trade is a mess. Thanks, King George.
This is the start of a revolution! The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states.
I don't know how I'm possibly going to be able to feed my family now.
No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by the law.
We don't want these soldiers on our shores, much less in our homes.
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You can kill my friends and family, but you can't kill the American spirit.
The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people.
Ever heard of that little thing called the Boston Tea Party?
Revolution is imminent, and you have to decide where you stand. And remember, history has its eyes on you.
This message is paid for and approved by the Sons of Liberty.
We're now going to show some projects by our wonderful media comm students. Lewis, you want to introduce?
Video we'd like to show. I know I speak quietly, so it's hard to hear me when I'm not on the microphone. So the first video we'd like to show is part of our film studies class this semester. We had 5 films made, and the students in the film study class, we're going to have a film festival with a bunch of films in the fall, but we wanted to highlight this one film during our showcase. It's entitled Bittersweet, and well, I'll just let you all look at it. They voted for this, the whole class voted for this one almost unanimously to show today, so here it is. Bittersweet. Bitter and sweet.
Hi.
Hi. What can I get for you?
Can I please get a large lavender latte?
Yeah, of course. You want that hot, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, what can I get you?
Can I get a large lavender latte, please?
Yeah, of course. You want that hot?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll have it right out for you.
Thank you.
Jordan? Jordan? Here you go.
Oh my!
Oh my
I'm so
gosh.
sorry. I did.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
No, it's okay.
Let me set this down.
It's okay. Yeah, it's fine.
I'll go get some napkins.
Okay.
Here you go.
Thank you.
I'm seriously so
No,
sorry.
it's okay. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I gotta go. I'm sorry. I gotta go.
We'll take it. This is exactly what
And I hate sending you a text, but you're just driving me crazy and it's making me angry at you. So we should probably be done with this interview, and you should just
Jordan?
This conference actually. Thank you. Do you want to hear a joke? Sure. What do you close your teeth to help? Elephant.
A talk show where we pick issues of the day, important societal, cultural issues of the day, and we discuss them and look at them from a Christian perspective. And we do this just about every semester, and because we don't have the same class every semester, it's a different class that produces these each semester, and we produce about 6 a semester. And so this one is from this semester, right, Michaela? What are we talking about in this particular one? This is number 3. Well, we'll find out. And it's important because what we get to do is we get to engage the division of religion or psychology, sociology, some different. We bring in professors and students from across the campus. Sometimes we get people from outside of the campus to come in and discuss these cultural issues with us. And we really get some good interviews and good conversation going. Actually, we get good conversation when we're reviewing this inside the class as well.
Welcome, SWU Nation, to The Compass, a show where we discuss today's world from a Christian perspective. I'm Kyle Clardy.
And I'm Julia Reed. Today we will talk about sports injuries. Let's get started. According to the NCAA, injuries, while hopefully infrequent, are often an unavoidable part of sports participation. While most injuries can be managed with little to no disruption in sport participation and other activities of daily living, some impose a substantial physical and mental burden.
For some student athletes, the psychological response to injury can trigger or unmask serious mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, disordered eating, and substance abuse or use.
For a deeper look into this issue, here's Isabel Matos.
The sports world has been plagued with injuries time and time again. Some of the worst, like Joe Theismann's career-ending leg break or Conor McGregor's shattering his tibia in the octagon, are hard to forget. Injuries aren't always season-ending, but can have long-lasting effects no matter the level of play.
So my freshman year, first I got a concussion within the first month, and so that really sucked, like coming right back in to college and not being able to play. That really sucked. And then I recovered from that. It took me a little bit to get back, and then I ended up suffering an ankle injury in November of that same year, and then ultimately breaking my ankle in February, which required season-ending surgery.
I suffered a grade 3 ankle sprain my senior season, which is essentially almost one step from breaking into all the ligaments of my ankle. Which the recovery process on that, 6 to 8 weeks to be back walking for real, not necessarily running and doing active activities.
Sports injuries affect a player physically, but they also affect the players mentally.
It was kind of like a why me situation. It was like I didn't know like why, like things just happened right one after another, and it was very frustrating. Like I would get better from something and then something else would happen. So that really tore me down, and I turned away from everything that I thought was good for me. Like my relationship with God was not what it was supposed to be in those moments, just because I was so I was kind of throwing myself a pity party. I was like, well, all this bad stuff's happening to me, and like there's nothing I can do about it. So I just felt very helpless and very alone in those moments.
You start questioning, like, is it really over? Is it a chance to maybe pursue college? Being that didn't have no film, and the amount of scholarships was lacking because everybody got the extra year back. So I'm just thinking, is it over with, or do I still have a shot?
Sports injuries happen and are something we must ultimately prepare for, but hope they never occur. Athletes should take precautions to prevent sports injuries, and those who have been injured, make sure to take care of your mental health. This is Isabel Matos for MC SWU.
Welcome back. I'm now joined by Coach Hewitt, who is head coach of the men's basketball team here at Southern Wesleyan. Thank you for being here today, Coach Hewitt.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Allergies are a bit much, but it's doing all right.
That weather outside.
Yeah.
So how often do injuries occur on your team?
Honestly, probably about a weekly basis. It happens quite often. We've had numerous guys come down with injuries, and it affects the team a lot.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. How does it affect your team as a whole?
You just got to roll with the punches. We had a guy sit out for almost a whole season with a concussion this past year. Our leading scorer, Jamal Edmondson, he broke his foot, and so he was out for 2 or 3 weeks, and he actually kind of played through a broken foot almost the whole rest of the season. So it was wonderful to have him back, but it was really hard to push through without him.
Right. Well, so what methods do you use to prevent injuries like that from happening?
We stretch before every practice, every game. We stretch, try to get them loose before every game, every time we step on the floor. And actually, I do a little bit of yoga with them. Put some music on and put the lights out in the gym. And we stretch, and they seem to like it. So it's good.
So how do you handle injuries that occur in game?
It's one of those you gotta fly by the seat of your pants. It's something you hope it doesn't happen, but it kind of does happen sometimes, and so you just got to be able to have the rotations and be able to move on the fly. And other people at the team knows that when people go down, you got to pick up the slack. So
right, yeah. So what steps do you take to help players heal from these injuries?
The training staff's a big part of it. They ice after every game. They take ice baths. They wrap. They heat before games. They do all the things that the trainers tell them to do to be able to come back to action. Like I said, Jamal was out for a couple weeks, and they had him in a walking boot. And Josh Martin, our freshman point guard, he was out for a concussion, and I didn't get to see him practice for a month and a half. So,
wow.
But yeah, it's whatever they say to do. I have to. My team and I have to do it. So, but they're great, and that's why they're the professionals.
Exactly. So how do you help your players to stay on track, not only physically but spiritually during their time of healing?
Honestly, it's a big part of our team. A spiritual aspect of our team is a big part of it. We have devotionals every week. I talk to each individual on a daily basis about their spiritual life, about their spiritual growth, and hopefully that's part of their lives, because it is a big part of mine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your insight.
No problem.
We'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back after the break.
What if there's a place for you where your dreams and future collide with God's vision and direction, where thinking and doing go hand in hand with innovation, where servant leaders of the next generation are grown, and where your story can be written and change the course of history, where generosity is contagious, and if you catch it, you just might change the world. This is it. Step into community, step into faith, step into life, step into Southern Wesleyan University.
Welcome back. I'm now joined by Yo-Yo Echeverria, midfielder for the SWU Women's Lacrosse team. How are you today, Yo-Yo?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. So lacrosse is a very physical sport. Have you ever been injured during your time playing lacrosse?
Yes. Recently, I got a concussion, actually, and I think that's the worst injury I've got.
Okay. So when you had your concussion, how did you deal with that? How did that affect you mentally?
I was definitely in a low point just because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't really see people because everything was so loud. Everything gave me a headache. Right. So I definitely fell into depression for a while there.
How did you still stay involved with your team despite dealing with that injury?
I was able to, they kept reaching out, and I was able to go to practice and help with film, help in the sidelines. They actually came to my room to check on me. I was in a dark room, so they would be like, "Are you sure you're okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So it's nice having a small team because of that. Like you stay close to each other no matter what happens. So
yeah, being around that environment probably helped too, around practice with your
definitely,
teammates.
Yeah.
So while in the concussion protocol, how were you able to work to try and get out back on the field and out of the protocol?
It just took time for me to get back. Definitely the trainers did a good job on keeping me out as much as needed. I'm the type of person that just wanted to be active, just wanted to be with people, and they were like, "Let's take it slow, day by day." I stayed in my room for a whole 2 days in the dark doing nothing, so that definitely helped, but I was also sad because I was in my room doing nothing.
Yeah.
But definitely taking time to heal was a good thing.
Right, time is important with an injury like that. When you came back from your concussion, how hard was it for you to get back into the routine of going to practice and school and class and everything? How was that for you?
It was the end of the semester, so procrastination definitely hit. So definitely professors helped me out a lot just because they will give me due dates. They will be like, "This was due 2 months ago. You have to do it now." And I'm like, "Okay." And then lacrosse-wise, my teammates definitely help a lot. They push me through everything, and I think, again, this small environment was easier to do extra work outside of practice, before practice, kind of keep going. I think it was a good experience, because it just reconnected to your team a lot, so.
Right, and that builds a closer bond with you and your teammates.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Yo-Yo.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll be right back with more after the break.
Hi, I'm Madeline Barrett. I am a Southern Wesleyan graduate, class of 2021. I majored in media communication in a concentration of public relations. I am currently at the reserves at Lake Huey here at the sales office. I work with Coldwell Banker Kane. This original position was part-time, and then my supervisor saw my resume and saw all of the things that I've done at Southern Wesleyan, including hosting a number of talk shows, creating an Instagram account for our communications department, and she thought Wow, you just have blown me away with all of these amazing things you've been a part of, and I want to offer you a full-time position here. Southern Wesleyan invested in me, and I got a return on my investment.
We've seen a lot today about injuries that are involved with sports and how the athletes and coaches deal with these injuries. Julia, I know you ran on the track and cross country team here at SWU. Did you ever have to deal with any injuries during your time on the team?
Yeah, so the biggest injury that I dealt with was shin splints. Thankfully, like as a runner, I was able to catch this injury before it got like super severe, but it did put me out. I missed a lot of meets because of it, and I guess it added struggle to my everyday life too, because like not only was I really set back from like my physical goals I wanted to reach, I also like felt the pain throughout like the rest of my life as well. Right. Like it hurt to walk around places, so things like that. It definitely like added struggles that I had to work through every day.
Yeah. I would say for me, I think the one thing I had that was, I would say it's pretty common for most basketball players, just rolling an ankle here and there, sprain an ankle. You know, you might have a sprained knee. I think I rolled my ankle pretty early on in the season. It was just one of those things where you kind of grit your teeth and play through it. You know, the competitor comes out. But you know, it's like there's the typical bruises and aching, soreness, things like that. But you know, it's those little injuries, although they seem like the common thing, you know, like a rolling an ankle or shin splints, like you mentioned. But it can totally derail your season. I mean, it makes it hard for your daily life to move around, constantly in pain. You know, your sport, you're kind of gritting your teeth, trying to push through it, play in practice and games. It's tough overall. And then, you know, with the major injuries we discussed earlier, I mean, those are months of rehab, recovery. You're doing physical therapy, and then the mental aspect of it too. I mean, I couldn't imagine having something serious like that. So the little injuries I've had are pretty small compared to that.
I feel the same. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Compass. Join us next week as we talk about debt.
All of the topics that they want to discuss them, and we vote on it as a class. And we, as a class, when people pitch these ideas, we look at, is this doable in a semester? Is this a story that can be told properly? Can you access the right people to be able to get the information we need to put this story forward and enlighten people and have the story have impact? So in our news show, it's similar. Each of the students have to do 3 news stories in the semester, which is, I tell them, I'm easy on them. When I was at the University of Texas, we did 10 a semester. Here, it's SWU-ish, so we do 3 a semester. But they have to pitch what their story is, and they have to come to class with 3 different story ideas for all 3 stories that they end up doing. And then as a class, we'll look at each one of these pitches that they make, and we'll go through it like I just said. We'll look at, is this something that you can have access to the right people? Can you tell a story? Does this involve young kids where you're going to have to get, you know, signed? So we look at all these things. Is it appropriate to be telling? And also, the stories that we try to tell for our purposes here are what we call evergreen stories. They're not something that's breaking news. It's a story that has what I call legs that'll last throughout, you know, sometimes so that you show it to prospective employers and news directors. And the students have to produce these stories to an exacting format. They have to have a video, they have to have at least 2 interviews, they have to have what we call a stand-up bridge, and it has to be 1 minute and 23 seconds long from the beginning to the end with a half a second of padding on each side. So it's a total of 1 minute and 24, with the story itself being 1 minute and 23. And news directors, they want to know that not only can these students tell a story, but tell it precisely in the format that they want it to be. And if it's not in that format, it's a non sequitur for the news directors. So they really have to work hard on making these things precisely correct.
Hello, I'm Julia Reeves.
And I'm Amik Bhatt. Welcome to SWU News. On today's show, we'll look at COVID and the way it has impacted people and their everyday lives.
First, let's see how universities are handling COVID and social distancing.
Kyle Clady has the story.
In the spring of 2020, Southern Wesleyan University closed down due to the coronavirus pandemic. But as soon as the doors closed, faculty and staff set out to make a plan to reopen the campus safely for the students and faculty.
Yeah, there have been multiple things. One of them was just rearranging class spaces, and then just some general good practice guidelines, washing your hands. Students, faculty, and staff pitched in and really followed our guidelines well, and that's what's helped us stay face-to-face and safe on campus.
So the barriers, just making sure that behind the counter my staff felt safe, making sure that students felt like, you know, they had some distancing between as well, making sure that we wore our masks. And so obviously the distancing stickers, the seating, like where you can sit, where you can't. So just some of those things were how we, and the layout of the whole room is different.
Another one of the changes implemented here on campus so that we could open safely is the socially distanced and mask wearing in the classroom.
As faculty, we've all had to flex a little bit on things like assignments and deadlines. We make pivots and we make adjustments to make sure that we're in compliance. The last thing that we want to be is out of compliance.
I'm Kyle Clardy for MC SWU.
Thanks, Kyle. It's great to see how campuses are handling COVID.
It looks like colleges are handling COVID well, but how are these students handling these new adjustments?
Brian Roach has reports.
As we know, COVID-19 has impacted our lives for a year now. Since most young adults are returning to schools, universities, jobs, they're all being told to socially distance to a minimum of 6 feet. But how well are schools regulating social distancing, and are they finding it annoying?
Clemson has handled social distancing pretty well. It's cool that students get to pick or can say whether they want to be online or in person based on the comfort level. I know some people who have chosen to stay online because it just works better.
Oh, of course. I mean, as an RA, as just a person who loves community, came here for the community aspect, and something that SWU strives itself on so promptly. To have that hit in such a big way with COVID-19 and the effects that takes, where SWU has to then socially distance and follow regulations and guidelines so that we can remain open, so that we do get at least some interaction.
So students believe that schools are regulating social distancing and are finding it annoying, but is it negatively impacting them psychologically?
I definitely think it could, because you have to think about being so far from someone just because of COVID, and that could affect us long term.
As we see it, social distancing is still widely in effect today, and some are finding it an annoyance. But some believe that this can have a negative effect on them psychologically. I am Brian Roach from MC SWU.
Thanks, Brian. We'll be back after this short break.
Hi, I'm Madeline Barrett. I am a Southern Wesleyan graduate, class of 2021. I majored in media communication in a concentration of public relations. I am currently at the reserves at Lake QE here at the sales office. I work with Coldwell Banker Kane. This original position was part-time, and then my supervisor saw my resume and saw all of the things that I've done at Southern Wesleyan, including hosting a number of talk shows, creating an Instagram account for our communications department, and she thought, wow, you just have blown me away with all of these amazing things you've been a part of, and I want to offer you a full-time position here. Southern Wesleyan invested in me, and I got a return on my investment.
Let's give all of our current students who showed work in this last section a hand. And what I hope happens is, if you saw Zach Turner's piece, The Bitter and Sweet, which wasn't just Zach Turner, that's the name that's coming to mind right now, was obviously a collaborative project. Or you heard Liv and Taylor speak. Like, go start a conversation with them. Say, really good job. How can I be a part of what you're doing? So we've heard from former students. We've heard from current students. Now we're going to hear from a professor. Dr. Schleifer has worked here at SWU since 1995. He's directed theatrical productions. He's helped the men's soccer team. He served on the faculty senate. He's taught writing, literature, and public speaking, and he's retiring at the end of the semester. He's basically SWU's avatar for public speaking and communication, so I was like, who better to give our keynote for this event? He's also a family man. He says on his faculty page, if you go to swu.edu, that he's a father and grandfather, and yesterday his granddaughter had surgery to have her tonsils and adenoids removed, so he couldn't be with us. But with Dr. Knight's help, we pre-recorded, or Dr. Knight recorded Dr. Schleifer's keynote. I wanted to say the first time I met Dr. Schleifer, I wasn't employed here yet. My wife was here, and after my winter break, I came on campus and I played some pickup basketball games. So the first time I met Dr. Schleifer was when he was passing me the ball and then looking at me with the "make a shot, you dummy" look. I did make the shot, by the way, and I think Dr. Schleifer has always thought more of my basketball skills than my academic skills. But I love the fact about Dr. Schleifer that he loves sports as much as he loves the authors he loves. So if you ask him who his favorite authors are, you're going to hear about John Donne or Charles Dickens or J.R.R. Tolkien. But then he can tell you about past Philadelphia athletes. He hails from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He'll talk to you about Randall Cunningham. He'll talk to you about Chase Utley or Dr. J. And then he'll talk to you about current athletes. So he cares about Jalen Hurts and Tyrese Maxey. And since I've always associated Dr. Schleifer in my head with basketball, I'm going to summon up my best homage to those pre-game player announcements, right? And now, a 5'7" point guard with degrees from Davidson College, the home of Steph Curry, and the University of Georgia, the home of Anthony Edwards, or some, you fill in the blank with who the better University of Georgia player would be. A professor of English for nearly 30 years at SWU, Dr. Paul Schleifer!
Good morning. I hope you're all well. Before I start, I want to thank all of you participants and audience members, and especially Jonathan for inviting me to give this keynote for the 2023 SWU Humanities Showcase. I've never given a keynote before, so this will be my debut as well as my swan song. STEM. I know this is supposed to be a speech about the humanities. Why am I bringing up STEM? STEM is the bad guys in the current academic war over resources, but STEM is where I'm starting. STEM has done a lot for me and my family over the years. In 1987, my oldest daughter, Sarah, was diagnosed with atrioventricular block. It's an electrical problem in the heart. The result is an irregular heartbeat. As a 3-year-old, Sarah had a resting heart rate of 55, which is about half of what it should be. Doctors put her through a series of tests, and eventually she got a pacemaker. She's 38 now, married, 4 kids, 3 dogs. She played volleyball in high school and for 2 years at Coastal Carolina, all thanks to STEM. In 1992, my wife, Dr. Lydia Schleifer, was diagnosed with a vascular non-cancerous tumor along her carotid artery. It was diagnosed by an ENT, that's ear, nose, and throat doctor, in Easley. She referred us to a specialist in Augusta, who referred us to a specialist surgeon in Nashville, Tennessee. The surgery to remove the tumor lasted 13 and a half hours. She's fine. except that she lost the hearing in her left ear, which is sometimes funny and sometimes annoying. Phil Mickelson, the golfer, and I have 3 things in common. We're both married, we both have daughters, and the third thing, money, golf? No. We both have psoriatic arthritis, although no pharmaceutical giant has asked me to promote their therapeutic drugs. Because of the arthritis and years of abuse playing soccer, basketball, and racquetball, my knees deteriorated. Because of STEM, I was able to get 2 new knees. I'm having to record this speech, which I can do thanks to STEM, because my granddaughter Emmy had surgery to remove her tonsils and adenoids. When the ENT in Savannah looked into her mouth, they said, "These are massive. They have to go." So while you're listening to me, I'm spending time with little Emmy, who is undoubtedly eating a lot of ice cream. Again, thanks to STEM. And all of that doesn't account for the other benefits that I've received from STEM. I have cars. I can go pick up a pizza. I don't have to walk to work. I can quickly get to the Anderson Y to play racquetball. I have computers so that I can write keynote addresses and novels and blog posts. I can grade students' papers on my computer. I have TVs that I can carry around with me that are smart. My dad, were he alive, would find the idea of a smart TV very funny. He used to call the TV the boob tube because he thought it made people stupid. I have houses. Not only do I have houses, but 2 of my houses now have solar panels on the roofs so that on sunny days I get free energy. Sometimes Duke Energy even pays me for my contribution to other people's energy needs. And my houses are insulated because of STEM. They have electrical power and indoor plumbing. In some places, they have luxury vinyl planks, which last longer than wooden floors but are easier to keep clean than carpet. STEM makes life easier. It makes doing certain kinds of tasks easier. It creates convenience. I love STEM. But does it make life worthwhile? I'm an English professor, not a botanist, so I actually had to do some research for this. I looked up stem, the word. A stem is something a plant has. It is the ascending axis of a plant, the little thing that goes up while the roots of the plant go down. The stem conducts water, minerals, and food to other parts of the plant. It may also store food, and green stems themselves produce food. The primary functions of the stem are to support the leaves, to conduct water and minerals to the leaves where they can be converted into usable products by photosynthesis, and to transport these products from the leaves to other parts of the plant, including the roots. Okay, so you're thinking to yourselves, Dr. Schleifer, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And of course I know that. But there's a reason that we make acronyms the way we do. I mean, they could have called it TEMS, or MEST, or even, I suppose, EMST, though that would be hard to say. Yes, Mrs. Perkins, I want to go to Clemson so that I can go into an EMST field. Yeah, no. I don't know who chose to give these related disciplines the acronym STEM, but they did, and it works. STEM fields support our modern lifestyle. Because of STEM, water and food are easily stored and conveniently made available to the rest of us. Yes, I love STEM, but does it, with all of its support for life, make life worthwhile and comprehensible? I'm not a gardener. My wife likes to play at being a gardener, though she is not as disciplined as most real gardeners are. She especially doesn't like to prune. She thinks pruning does damage to the plants, although it actually makes plants healthier. She, like most people who love gardens, I suppose, likes gardening because of the beauty of the flowers and sometimes of the leaves. I really cannot imagine anyone loving a garden because of all the beautiful stems. And believe me, I've seen small collections of them after the deer in our neighborhood have feasted on the hosta leaves. Not pretty. But even if they aren't pretty, stems are essential. Without the stems, there would be no flowers and no fruits. We need the stems, but we need the flowers and the fruits too. Without the flowers and the fruits, the stems are actually kind of pointless. Ask the deer. They leave the stems. And I guess what I want to say today at this 2023 SWU Humanities Showcase is that we need the humanities just as much as we need the stems, because it is the humanities that make this convenient life worthwhile. Let me take a moment to add to one of my earlier stories. My wife and I took our only child to Henrietta Eggleston Children's Hospital at Emory University in Atlanta in June of '87. The doctors did some tests, came back with their diagnosis, and then came back and told us what the solution was. Sarah was to have a pacemaker. A pacemaker? In our minds, a pacemaker was something that looked like a transistor radio. Do I need to explain that? With little wires running into the chest, something kept in the front pocket by a really old man. And they're telling us that our 3-year-old baby needs to have one of these things. Really? We checked Sarah out of the hospital with the intention of getting a second opinion. The doctors freaked out. They couldn't believe that we wouldn't do exactly what they told us to do and let them operate on our baby. They called our pediatrician, who called us, and we explained that we wanted to get a second opinion. I mean, after all, she had been living with this problem for who knew how long, right? We called Lid's dad, who was a physician in North Carolina. He contacted the doctors in Atlanta and got them to send the test information on to a friend of his at the medical school at Wake Forest, a pediatric cardiologist. A couple of days later, his friend concurred with the diagnosis and the recommendations. We returned to Atlanta, and Sarah got a pacemaker, and she's had 3 or 4 since they like to replace the whole thing and not just the battery. But there was this period of disconnect. What caused it? I would suggest that what caused it was a lack of the humanities. The doctors forgot that my wife and I are people, that we have ideas and preconceptions and fears and worries. They knew what the medical diagnosis was and how to fix the problem. Of course we would go along without question. There was no need to think about our feelings. Several years later, we got to experience the human side of pediatric medicine, sort of from the other side. When Sarah was 8 or 9, the tech, whom we saw every 6 months, asked if we would come at the same time as another family. This other family had a very young child with a pacer. The child had been diagnosed in utero with a heart ailment, a problem so severe that the doctors recommended a dilation and curettage, a D&C. That's medical jargon for an abortion. But the parents were people of faith. They rejected the recommendation, even though the doctors assured them the baby would not survive to term. But she did, and the parents named her Mary Grace. But the doctors told her that the baby would not survive the trauma of childbirth. The parents told their other daughters that Mary Grace would be born, would die, and would immediately go to heaven. Mary Grace proved them wrong again. And Mary Grace was airlifted from the hospital where she was born to Eggleston for a pacemaker. So why did Geiler, the tech, need us? Mary Grace's mom was a wreck. She was a helicopter mom on steroids. She canceled vacations because Mary Grace could not be too far from her doctor. What if something happened? Our job was to show Mary Grace's parents that a child could have a normal life despite having a pacer. Our job was to humanize pacemakers. Our job was to show Mary Grace's mother that there is more to living than just staying alive. Really, Dr. Schleifer? What else is there? Let's start with freedom. You can live and not be free, but who would want that? One of my favorite poets is Richard Lovelace, the Cavalier poet. He participated on the Royalist side in the English Civil War. And given that his side lost, maybe it's not a surprise that he spent some time in prison. In the last stanza of his poem, To Althea from Prison, he writes, "Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Minds innocent and quiet take that for an hermitage. If I have freedom in my love, and in my soul am free, angels alone that soar above enjoy such liberty." But what is a mind? And what is a soul? How do we know if we have freedom in our mind or in our soul? Is it measurable? Can we put it under a microscope or see it with a telescope? How about humor? Let me read the opening of a story. The story is by Lori Moore, an American writer who is not famous. The story is called How to Become a Writer, and it's written in the second person. It's from a collection of stories, all of which are told in the second person, where the main character of the story is you. An interesting choice. How to become a writer. First, try to be something, anything else. A movie star astronaut, a movie star missionary, a movie star kindergarten teacher, president of the world. Fail miserably. It is best if you fail in an early age, say 14. Early critical disillusionment is necessary so that at 15 you can write long haiku sequences about thwarted desire. It is a pond, a cherry blossom, a wind brushing against sparrow wing leaving for mountain. Count the syllables. Show it to your mom. She is tough and practical. She has a son in Vietnam and a husband who may be having an affair. She believes in wearing brown because it hides spots. She'll look briefly at your writing, then back up at you with a face blank as a donut. She'll say, "How about emptying the dishwasher?" Look away. Shove the forks in the fork drawer. Accidentally break one of the freebie gas station glasses. This is the required pain and suffering. This is only for starters. Now, this is especially funny to me because it reminds me of my dad. My dad had this theory that if we had only the minimum number of glasses necessary for the household, then we would use a glass, rinse it out, and use it again. But if we had too many, we would use a glass and put it into the sink and get another glass next time. You see, my dad insisted on doing dishes by hand even though we had a dishwasher. My brother John, on the other hand, loved to pick up Looney Tunes glasses. Gas stations and fast food restaurants back in the day used to give these things away, and they were actually made of glass. So every once in a while, after dinner, my brother and I would be sitting in the family room doing homework or watching the boob tube, and we would hear, "Oops," and then a crash. My dad would have dropped one of those glasses and broken it purely by accident, right? Which is why when I see the "you" in the above passage, breaking the glasses, it's on purpose. How about sadness and longing? My favorite Tennessee Williams play is The Glass Menagerie. If you don't know it, you should. It's a memory play, and the main narrating character, Tom, leaves his mother and his sister Laura by the end of the play, driven away by his mother. But he misses his sister. It's a story you have to experience. But imagine his saying this while Laura, the sister, is behind him on the stage, leaning over candles on the dinner table. I didn't go to the moon. I went much further, for time is the longest distance between two places. Not long after that, I was fired for writing a poem on the lid of a shoebox. I left St. Louis. I descended the step of this fire escape for a last time and followed from then on in my father's footsteps, attempting to find in motion what was lost in space. I traveled around a great deal. The cities swept about me like dead leaves, leaves that were brightly colored but torn away from the branches. I would have stopped, but I was pursued by something. It always came upon me unawares, taking me altogether by surprise. Perhaps it was a familiar bit of music. Perhaps it was only a piece of transparent glass. Perhaps I am walking along a street at night in some strange city before I have companions. I pass the lighted windows of a shop where perfume is sold. The window is filled with pieces of colored glass, tiny transparent bottles in delicate colors, like bits of a shattered rainbow. Then all at once, my sister touches my shoulder. I turn around and look into her eyes. Oh, Laura, Laura, I tried to leave you behind me, but I am more faithful than I intended to be. I reach for a cigarette. I cross the street. I run into the movies or a bar. I buy a drink. I speak to the nearest stranger. Anything that can blow your candles out. For nowadays, the world is lit by lightning. Blow out your candles, Laura, and so goodbye. Shakespeare's King Lear says, I am a man more sinned against than sinning. And despite having seen him reject his daughter early in the play, by this point we believe him because we have experienced his suffering with him. Now, I understand that at a really high level of mathematics, mathematicians will sometimes prefer one solution to a problem over another because it is more elegant or beautiful. But very, very few people in this world can appreciate the elegance of mathematical solutions. Shoot, most of us can't even understand them. On the other hand, most people can appreciate the beauty of a sunrise, or of a beach, or of a small family of deer stopping to munch in the woods, or of a painting or photograph of the same. The stars on a cloudless night are beautiful, but I don't have to know how far one is from another in order to appreciate the beauty. I don't even have to know why some stars appear a little more red, like Betelgeuse, while others a little more blue, like Rigel. Okay, so one kind is hotter and the other is not as hot, but I'll let you figure out which one is which. But the humanities give us this statement of beauty. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. What about comfort? I cannot remember the last time I was comforted by my toaster oven. Relief, sure, like when I find a gas station at last, or when the Sudafed finally kicks in, but comfort? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What about joy? Can anything bring us joy more than this little moment in literature? In his agony, Scrooge caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but he was strong in his entreaty and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him, holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed. He saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrank, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in. I will live in the past, the present, and the future, Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees. Or there's that wonderful scene in the movie Bruce Almighty, a movie I avoided when it first came out because it looked sacrilegious. The main character, played by Jim Carrey, complains to God that God isn't doing his job because he's not answering Bruce's prayers. So God lets Bruce be in charge for a week that proves disastrous, more for Bruce than for anyone else. Finally, in his despair, Bruce understands and falls down on his knees in the middle of a street in the rain and says, "You win, I'm done. Please, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be God. I want you to decide what's right for me. I surrender to your will." Of course, he's immediately hit by a truck. And when he wakes up in heaven and asks God, God says, "You can't kneel down in the middle of a highway and live to talk about it, son." Although, well, I won't spoil the end any more than I already have. What about love? STEM fields can tell us about reproduction, but what does STEM tell us about love? Some evolutionary psychologists talk about altruism among animals, but the truth is that it is reciprocal altruism, not the kind of sacrificial love we learn about from the story of our Lord or from the stories he told us. And while reproduction among humans and our notions of romantic love might be connected, they are not the same thing. How much does love preoccupy our minds, especially romantic love, especially when we're young adults, although the need for romance continues even into our senior years? How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs, and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. In Japanese theater and literary tradition, double suicides of lovers are a big thing. It happens when their personal feelings, or ninjo, or their love for one another, are at odds with social conventions or familial obligations, kiri. Double suicides were rather common in Japan throughout history, and they became an important theme of the bunraku, the traditional puppet theater. The tragic denouement is usually known to the audience beforehand. It is preceded by Michiyuki, a small poetical journey, where the lovers evoke the happier moments of their lives and their attempts at loving each other. Then they jump off a cliff or something. Interestingly, there has been a steady decline over the past 20 years in the number of and the market share of romantic comedies compared to other movie genres, at least among the ones that show up in the theaters. But I'd be willing to bet that there's someone in your family who's virtually addicted to Hallmark Christmas movies, right? And what does STEM have to do with faith? Oh, yes, there are those Christians who are scientists and who attribute their love of science to God, perhaps to wanting to understand and better appreciate his creation. But what does STEM tell us about our relationship with a personal God who loves us and wants to save us from our own stupidity. Here's John Donne's Holy Sonnet number 7. At the round earth's imagined corners, blow your trumpets, angels, and arise, arise from death, you numberless infinities of souls, and to your scattered bodies go. All whom the flood did and fire shall o'erthrow, all whom war, dearth, age, agues, tyrannies, despair, law, chance hath slain, and you whose eyes shall behold God and never taste death's woe. But let them sleep, Lord, and me mourn a space. For if above all these my sins abound, 'tis late to ask abundance of thy grace when we are there. Here on this lowly ground, teach me how to repent, for that's as good as if thou hadst sealed my pardon with thy blood. Here's what John Milton says about his fear of not being an adequate servant of God because he's gone blind. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent, which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent to serve there with my Maker, and present my true account, lest he return chiding. Doth God exact day labor, light denied? I fondly ask. But patience, to prevent that murmur, soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed in post or land and ocean without rest. They also serve who only stand and wait. In literature, a personified patience teaches me about God's nature. I'm leaving out a lot, partly because of the mode of communication. I've left out the performing arts like opera and dance. I've left out music, even though music is God's language. I thought about singing a bit for you, but I didn't want to break Lewis's microphone. I've left out the visual arts, some of which I love. But Lewis told me that he has room for only 8 hours of recording. Bummer, right? I love STEM. STEM makes life easier. It makes doing all kinds of daily tasks more convenient. But I love the humanities because, along with my own relationship with God, my family, my friends, and my students, the humanities bring joy into my life. The humanities allow me to experience life through the eyes of others, teaching me compassion. The humanities expand my understanding of grief and suffering, love and faith. And the humanities make me laugh. The humanities are the flowers and the fruits. We cannot live without the stems, but the stems enable the flowers and fruits. Now I have just one problem. I don't have an acronym. Let's see. Humanities, arts, religion, and music. No, that probably wouldn't work. Humanities, arts, religion, English, and music. Harem. Yeah, no. Can we do something with flower or fruit? I know. Literature, art, religion, and philosophy. LARP. No, that one's been taken. I can't think of a thing. I'll let y'all work on that, but I'll close with a poem. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. And may the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus.
Thanks so much to all of our presenters today. We managed to pull this off through the tireless work of the SWUSA crew, Wes Pate and Will Hughes in particular, our professors of history and public policy, Dr. Michael Keaton, Dr. Ken Myers, Dr. Schleifer, our professor of media communication and AV guru, Dr. Lewis Knight, and his lab of committed MediaCom students, who along with Warren Dennis provided the glitz and glam for today. Thanks so much. I hope what you saw today will prompt you to start a conversation with someone. The blessings of God with you. Have a great rest of your day.